now invite our third and final speaker for this session, Mr.Izham Ismail, Chief Executive Officer of the Professional Footballers Association of Malaysia. Like many of the speakers for this conference, Izham holds both a law as well as a very heavy sports background. Izham holds a law degree from the University of Malaya, and where he was also the former president of the University of Malaya Students Representative Council, and of course was a very active member of the Law Society. He was a fellow at the Deputy Prime Minister's Office under the Perdana Fellows Program, and he's currently the CEO of the Professional Footballers Association of Malaysia, and as well as the FIFPro Asia Oceania Regional Manager, where he represents professional footballers across this country. And with that, I'd like to now invite Izham to deliver his presentation. Izham.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the KLIAW for having me as a representative of footballers, professional footballers across the country, to give our side of the story. And I'm very privileged to share the stage with all esteemed guest speakers to speak about the situation that is happening, or the challenges faced by Footballers Association in Malaysia, and how PFAM as a players association fit in the dispute resolution mechanism involving footballers and sportsmen in Malaysia and its challenges. Also maybe touch on a bit of the challenges of being the final presenter of the day. A bit of history of the PFA for the benefit of those who do not know about the operation of a Footballers Association. It tracks a long way from 1907 through the establishment of Professional Footballers Association in England, where in 1907 the PFA of England was established to represent English players in England and Wales. And they are very instrumental in their fight against the maximum wage of the players and the draconian retain and transfer system in English football. And the PFA in England was playing a very huge part in the movement and also the well-being of the profession of footballers across the world. Through so many groundbreaking cases, notably being George Eastham and Newcastle United Football Club, where a player, where in that case the maximum wage was abolished and the retain and transfer system was also abolished, which means that at the end of the contract, at the expiry of a contract of a professional footballers, a player can transfer or move around or can go to any other clubs. And in 1965, FIFPro was established. FIFPro is a union connecting footballers all over the world in 4 main regions in Europe, Asia, Africa and Americas. And Malaysia, through PFAM, is one of the affiliate member of FIFPro, and we are very proud to say that we represent not just all 600 Malaysian players in Malaysia, but also we are also the voice of 30,000 professional footballers all over the world. And I always say to my friends that I'm very proud to say that I am somehow representing or speaking on behalf of Lionel Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo, and especially the Liverpool players. In 2009, PFAM was established officially under the Sports Development Act by the Sports Commissioner, but we had a rough patch back then. It was not really accepted by the players. The leadership wasn't there, and in 2013, we had to re-establish the PFAM, and in 2014 the Sports Development Act, or the Sports Commissioner, re-registered PFAM under the Sports Development Act, and we get our act together, and up until today it has been running for nearly a year. And until now we have more than 600 professional footballers under the banner of PFA Malaysia, and we are in the process of increasing the number over the years. And PFAM strives in the excellence of overall welfare of the players, as we know that Malaysian footballers professional footballers reserve or have the same rights as any employees all over the world. And whatever I say today might be a little bit uneasy for some of the employers here, but this is what we have to do to preserve the rights of the professional footballers in Malaysia and all over the world. And we take care of the welfare, development, representation and collective bargaining facilitation, and also we provide advisory and legal assistance to our members. To gauge or to assess the problems faced by the players in Malaysia, FIFPro commissioned PFA Malaysia to conduct a study we call FIFPro Asia Research Book to monitor or to actually to get more understanding on what are the problems faced by professional footballers across Asia. And this FIFPro Asia Player Research Book is to record accurately, and it is very important to us for us to formulate or devise a strategic plan as we chart to protect or to preserve the rights of the players. And this research book, or rather research, was done to all 471 players from 7 countries in Asia. And for the purpose of this presentation, I would zoom in to what is the results or the response from Malaysian footballers, all 127 participants. So, through this research, we recognize 4 key areas or 4 issues that can be said to be traditional ones in a career of a footballer in Malaysia. First being the termination of contract. This issue is very important, and also players' participation in the leagues, in the team that they play in, and payments and training, and also health and safety of the profession. Let's go on to the first key area, termination of contract. Through this pre-analysis that we have done, we have there are 11% of 127 Malaysian players who are terminated, have their contracts terminated without just cause, and 30% of them know of another player who has had a playing contract terminated without just cause, and 3% was terminated due to injury, and 1.6% terminated due to the coach wanted another player, and 3% were given no excuse at all. And this, we feel that it is very important for us to look into it on how the situation or how the problems faced by Malaysian footballers. And I think these shouldn't happen in the first place. And we are going to chart or going to formalize a more effective system to combat against all this. Second is the players' participation. We can see 70% of the players were unable to play because of various disputes over transfer, where there are the huge confusion over the transfer mechanism in Malaysian football, and I told Richard Wee earlier that I will be quite forthcoming in my presentation. Him being in the disciplinary board of FAM, I warned him that I will be quite critical today, and 30% of them were out for 3 months, 2% out for 3 to 6 months, and 3% of them have disputes over visa and permit. And we feel that this shouldn't happen. Third one is contracts, payment and training alone. We discovered that this is quite an eye-opener to us. 22% of the players did not receive a copy of their players' agreement. Basically, they do not know that it is a contract in the first place. It is quite a culture in Malaysian football that the only thing they read in their contracts is the cover and the back page, their names and the amount of salary they're getting every month, and it can be reflected on this research book. And 9% not paid according to the contract, where there is also a worrying culture in Malaysian football that there are 2 methods of payments to the players, one on the table and one under the table, and this is getting very frustrating to the Malaysian footballers and Malaysian Footballers Union. And 34% not receive their salary on time, and also a big number. 13.7% had their reason for unpaid salary because the clubs have no money, and the clubs are very straightforward in telling the players that they do not have money. An attitude I hope that the government also have. 21% was not told of the reason that they were being terminated or not paid, and 19% forced to train alone, with the presumption that their contracts will be terminated later. And finally, health and safety of the players also is a big concern for PFA Malaysia, because we feel that the regulation of FIFA disciplinary code is very clear that association must assess the degree of risk posed by matches and notify the FIFA bodies and comply with and implement existing safety rules for the benefit of the well-being of the career of the footballers. And we have found that 37% of the players were found to play or train in conditions containing risk to player health and safety, and also 9% played in extreme heat condition. Some of them played at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and 18% did not have adequate rest between matches. The scheduling of Malaysian football is quite funny sometimes, where you can have players to play 2 competitive matches within 2 days, which unacceptable. And 13% of the players said association failed to provide access to medical professionals and facilities to protect and maintain player health and safety, which means that there were no medical officers available to them when they play football. And we think as a football association needs something that needs to be addressed. To dispose or to deal with this matter, PFAM have established a grievances committee. This is an effort by the PFA Malaysia to handle all the cases and to develop a mechanism capable in solving problems in a fair, simple and efficient through mediation among professional football players in Malaysia. And we act as an intermediary between footballers and also state football association and clubs, and to identify solutions to any of the problems that have been mentioned earlier in the research. And the functions of the committee is to receive and record any complaints from professional football players in Malaysia, and also to provide advisory services and to identify complaints and troubleshoot steps based on terms of reference that we have devised. Okay. Let's go through the process. This is a domestic process that we oversee for the last few months. First step is the relationship between PFAM and the player, where we receive formal written complaints from the player if they are faced with any of the issues and problems that are stated earlier, and the complaint will be recorded and in PFAM database, and then this information will be given, or rather been submitted to the club and association. And after analyzing, the grievance committee will write a letter to the manager of any clubs and association within 7 days, and if it's still not resolved, a formal written notice must be given to the secretary of the club and association, and the matter should be resolved within 14 days, which is not often the case. And if it's still not resolved, a formal written complaint must be given to FAM, Player Status Committee. And I suppose this is the avenue that had been given to the Malaysian football, given under the Section 23 of the Sports Development Act, the Domestic Tribunal. This is one of the example of it, and I'm going to show you how effective it is. And third step is through the FAM Player Status Committee, where a formal written complaint must be submitted to FAM Player Status Committee together with an affidavit within 7 days, and then it will go through, if any appeal, they will go through appeal committee of FAM, and also there's also provision for application for mediation and application for arbitration. And I'm very happy to hear the news earlier that all 600 players of PFAM may benefit from the free service of the Malaysian Sports Arbitration Tribunal that will be set up later. And I think this grievance procedure might change maybe in the next few months. So this is the number of cases that have been handled by the grievance committee over the past few months. Since October 2014, we have 35 number of cases involving unpaid salaries. In contract termination, we have 27. And also outstanding payment of compensation, 15. 6 cases involving injury liability, and also 2 a very extreme case of contract fraud. Next, I will go to the challenges faced by the PFA Malaysia and the players on the situation that we are facing today. Yeah. First, being the players' awareness and education. I'll give you a snippet on how the players read the contract, and that is the level of awareness that they have about their rights and obligation as a players. And some of them do not know what are their obligations in the contract, and it's getting very that is one of the challenges that PFAM have. And number 2, maybe one of the most important, is the attitude of clubs and associations towards good governance, towards respecting the rights and obligation and responsibility of a football club. This is something that also needs to be highlighted, where low priority is placed on players' rights by football authorities and their contractual duty. And we can see this in so many cases that have been handled by PFAM, where the clubs and association do not care about the rights and responsibility of the players, and their contractual rights denied, and this is getting very frustrating for the PFA. And also one of the most important challenge that we are facing is the professional contract of footballers in Malaysia. The professional contract of footballers in Malaysia is imbalanced, and that it does not meet the minimum requirement standard set by FIFA. And there are no balance of clubs and players' obligation, where there are more provisions on the obligations of players on the contract as against the club, where there are still unfair clauses like the performance clause, performance review clause, which means that if a player is not performing, the player can have his salary reduced before the contract can be terminated, just like that. And this is allowed in the professional contract in Malaysia, of footballers in Malaysia. And we feel that FAM should do more in adopting a good practice and adopting the minimum requirement standard that has been agreed in 2008 to have a more balanced, to have a more fair contract, professional contract for the players. And last but not least, the dispute resolution mechanism of Football Authority is flawed. There are so many weaknesses, and one of it being the representation of players, which has been continuously denied by the Football Authority. We have a system where the chairman may disallow representation of the players, and this is obviously against natural justice, and the results of decision may subject to judicial review. And we had few cases before the player status committee of the Football Association Malaysia, and we were denied a few times to represent the players. And also the issue of oust of jurisdiction, where parties are not allowed to bring internal matters before the ordinary court before all remedies are exhausted. And this has been held in the case of Hafizi Rosli and Persatuan Bola Sepak Malaysia. This is a high court case which held that a party cannot bring any matter to an ordinary court before exhausting all the remedy in the domestic tribunal, which is fairly understandable, because it shows the reluctance of the court to interfere in any private association matter. But the internal tribunal of clubs and association in Malaysia, like I said before, is very inefficient, and it gets us very frustrating. So that's all the challenges and also the structure that we have now in Malaysia in terms of where we are in dispute resolution mechanism of Malaysian football. And moving on to the next part of the presentation is I will give a little bit of insight on what we have done as a PFA Malaysia, as a representative of Malaysian footballers to combat against all this. We have a strategic plan from 2013 until 2020, where the first phase, we are now in the second phase to establish the PFAM. We are now in the second phase where we want to strengthen the governance of the PFA before we can move on to another phases. And we have set up our office at Subang Jaya. And also we are in the process of increasing our numbers of membership. Currently we have more than 400 members registered under the PFA in Malaysia, which accounts to more than 60% of the total population of footballers in Malaysia. And we are looking at increasing the number of membership and get all the support from the players. One of the most important factor in running this association is it has to be as player driven as possible. All the strategic plan and all the plans that we have for the future of the PFAM comes from the players. It comes from the vision, and it comes from the player issues and problems from the players. And that is why membership drive is very important for us to gauge the opinions, to gauge the issues that have been faced by the players almost every day. Some of the highlights that we have for the past few months is this case where there are 12 players that have been unpaid for 6 months by a state association, and this is quite a sad case where in this case we saw more than 3 players from this case announce their retirement because of this case, because they are so frustrated at how Malaysian football treats them, and we saw how these 12 players were unpaid for 6 months, and they had to quit playing football, and some of them have to do odd jobs at selling burgers, selling kebabs, and that is happening in Malaysian football. And this is a groundbreaking case for us. It charts us and it positions us to be a fighter for the player, and the players are starting to recognize the importance of getting behind PFA Malaysia every time. Also, we these are some of the newspaper cuttings from the case, and also we have almost every day cases where players are unpaid, and we have players from all 3 leagues in Malaysia. We have Super League, Premier League, and FAM League, which totals around 30 teams, about 30 teams playing in Malaysian football, and we have almost every day players are not being paid their salary on time. And also there are this culture in Malaysia where there seems to be a trend where clubs and associations are treating the foreign players quite differently because of the fact that they are paid more, and they feel that the foreign players have to perform more because they are paid more, which is understandable. But the way they treat the players is they can just terminate the contracts of foreign players because of the performance clause. Yeah, sometimes the players score 2 or 3 goals in a game, but the existence of the clause make it possible for a coach or a manager to say that he is underperforming, because it is all up to the coach and the manager to give the opinion that the player is not performing, and this is allowed in Malaysian football contract. And also we have a transfer dispute problem in Malaysia, where it is very unclear. We don't have a transfer system which is very clear for everyone to assess, and we have a case where there is a player who signed for 2 different teams in 1 season because of this confusion of the transfer system. And to deal with all this, PFAM have initiated our education plans and efforts to educate the players on their rights and their contractual duty. And we conduct legal classes almost every month for the players, and also we conduct coaching, communication courses for their personal development, and also financial management course and entrepreneurial courses for their after career pathway. And also we have made some arrangements or partnership with some of the institution to have a more comprehensive plans for the players after their playing career is over, with some of the national university in Malaysia, and also some of the financial courses by financial institutions. There are some of the campaigns that have been run by the PFA. We have a social media guideline for the players to behave themselves off the field in the media, because it also one of the possible legal ramifications if they are not behaving well on the social media. And also we have a hot weather guideline for the teams and also for the players, and also we campaign against racism. And also, because we are a very young a young association, we feel that the players' acceptance to us, we still have a room to improve, and we have to continuously appear on the media to convince the players that they have to get behind PFAM for their own benefit. And also the players have understand their role in the society, and they are not just footballers, they are role models, and they should behave like ones. And understanding that, PFAM have organized few community programs, and this is us helping 50 families in Kelantan when the flood hit the East Coast state, and this is one of the efforts from the PFA to have a more role models, not just footballers. So I think that's all from me. Thank you very much for your attention.
If I could